myself again. My name is Maya Treacy. Nice to meet you all, and thank you all for coming tonight. And I'm here accompanied by my lovely husband there, Brian, and my supportive friend Lei. So they actually encouraged me to also join in and participate because I want to share my experience with Google Summer of Code with you all. I know from my own experience how actually that really helped me to get where I am now, which is at Leidos. But it's not that Leidos look at me and I'm part of, I have Google experience, that's why they hired me. It's not because of that at all. But what we're about to share with you tonight, Emil and I, we're probably going to tell you how participating in open source actually will be really beneficial for especially us students. I say us because I just graduated last year, by the way. So I got my Master of IT last year from Monash, and I actually contributed to untitled.org open source from 2020, and while I was doing my part-time uni. Now, a little bit about me. I'm a mother with 2 children, and now I'm actually working part-time while I was working studying at Monash. That's why it took me like 5 years for a Master of IT, which is supposed to be like taken in 2 years. That's also because I have 3 intermission in between because of COVID. It's just like, the virtual thing for me didn't sit in well with me at first, but then I just have to finish it because I can't wait too long for 2 years, extra 2 years. Anyway, now we're not here talking about me, we're talking about open source. Can I please ask, hands up, if any one of you heard of open source before? Good. Plenty of us know of what open source. Now, can someone participate? Explain to me, what is open source? You put your hands up, right? Yeah. Did you? Oh, you put your hands up for open source before. You said you know open source. Yeah, okay. So please tell me, what do you think open source is?
It's collaborative, open, basically any piece of software that anyone can contribute to and create, software that everyone can use. Like Linux, for example, is also open source, or many other SaaS-based products.
And why do you think people this? Like you said, Linux. They're a big company. Why do they want to do open source anyway? What benefit it is for that?
It's collaborative.
That's the key, right? And who normally will do open source? What type of people will be willing to do open source? Yes?
Community people.
Community people.
People who want others to build something out of it, like to their own personal liking.
Yeah, like to their own personal liking, or to what the mission of that project is. Yeah. So, but also, without some people still debating whether open source, but does that mean like if you get a hand of that source code, can you sell it? Say like hands up if you think you can sell it. Okay, good. Thank you. Thank you. No, pardon?
Does it depend on the license?
Exactly, depends on the license. But if you call it open source, I think regardless of what the license is, open means open. Like there are quite a few different type of license of open source, but you still cannot actually take that source code and then sell it. So, but to be I won't go into detail about it. You can actually, like our friends Google, like really have a good informative, you can Google it up and look it up. But now, let's go to the next slide. Okay. So here's what wiki definition is about open source. As you said, you got it on point. It's a source code that is made freely available, right? And it's possible for others to modify it and redistribute it But in terms of whether you can claim it your own after that and whether you can sell it, there's a very, very like not really fine line, I said, but you have to think twice before you do it. Okay? The reason because there's so many people actually get the hands of the code and things can get messy. That's why open source have this, if you can click on that object please. We have a body that trying to make sure that we have consistent definition with open source. Sorry, I think sometimes the light is so bright on your eyes, I have to just move a bit. Yeah, so this is why one of the organizations that actually trying to safeguard that definition of open source, explain what the terminology and whether they can be redistributed and what type of redistribution that people can do with this definition. I know, again, this is still in the debating area. Like people can claim like, look, I'm the one who knows more. This is not a non-profit organization. This is what our definition is. But the other company probably, or the other organization probably have a different way of explaining what open source is. So I'll leave it to them to decide. I'm not here for the debate. I'm not here to, representing this organization. I'm not here to represent any of the companies. I'm just here to represent myself because I had done GSOC and I would just want to share my experience with you. Okay. Now let's move back to the slide. And right. So if anyone here have made their first contribution or not? Anyone try to make? Well done, PK. Tell us about your contribution, please.
So my first ever contribution was basically, so it was a repo of preferred books and resources to learn data science for free. So it was just basically a markdown file where I just added a link to the books on Amazon and
that's good. That's good. Now, can you tell us how do you feel before you making that contribution? How did you find that that place where you want to contribute?
Well, it had like pictures of over 40 people who had contributed, and once you go into that repo and click on their profiles, you can actually see like their seasonal pros in what they do.
Mm-hmm.
So
how does that make you feel?
It makes you feel unsure of yourself at first, but I guess when your very first commit is accepted, that's like a golden feeling.
Definitely, I share your feeling. You know why? Because my first contribution, the first contribution to a real open source project, okay? The first commit I made is when I learned about how to contribute to open source project. So, but my actual first contribution was to Visual Studio Code. Like, you can feel the pressure. Anyone knows Visual Studio Code? Okay, so they are an IDE and they're open source, but they're really well maintained. And when I look into the organization, before I make the contribution, I thought, oh my goodness, this is all like big names. I mean, what am I doing here? You know, like you have that feeling. I feel like, will they even look at me? Will they even listen to me? Like if I put my ticket there? But don't worry, open source is there for a purpose. You know, it's open for everyone. You're open to learn something new from them. They make it possible for you to actually make mistakes. That's all right. No one gonna criticize you. No one gonna say, hey, sorry, you have to be extra pro to come here and contribute to us. No way. They won't make it open source. You know, they will probably just say, okay, I want someone expert, you have to pay me. You know, like, but if people willing to contribute regardless of their experience level, you know, like, then you have to make sure that the open source organization, the community that you're going into, actually welcoming community. You know, willing to listen to you, willing to accept that you're not an experienced person coming in with the knowledge to make this software wonderful. You're here as part of the learning process. Okay, you're there because you want to learn something, you're passionate about learning, and you want to contribute. Okay, and then you will know when that open source organization is actually a good match for you or not, if you have that feeling of being welcome. That's the first thing that I will have to mention. If you don't feel welcome, think twice. There are many open source out there. Yeah, so let's see the first contribution. Okay, I'm interested now. I really want to learn because I think open source is everywhere. I mean, even big companies using open source, and I can learn. The best thing about open source, I can learn. I don't have to pay. Like you pay in uni, right? Like fees. I mean, yeah. I mean, I had to pay for my uni, but then at open source, I can learn so many things, so many skills, so many, like soft skill, hard skill, but I don't have to pay. It's a beauty. Yeah, no, but where do I start? So, the first commit. I'm going to talk about the first commit. You can actually, one of the place that I start, when you click on the magnifier, please, Aldrich, is this first contributions. The name says it all, yeah? This is first contribution. I'm interested because that's what I Googled when I first, where do I start? I want to start open source. I don't know where to start. Okay. How to make a first contribution. First contribution, voila. They make the name so simple, it's easy to search. If you come down to this page, you can see that they actually guide you. They really guide you on how to make your contribution. Okay, and this is a good learning place for you to have. It probably, I don't know whether the facilitator will be able to share with everyone later the slides. Yeah?
I have sent the link on the our GDSE server, GDSE Discord server. So if you go to the Discord server, you can see the channel Journey to Open Source, and I've posted all the links there.
Okay, thank you so much. Because and depends. Look, you can tag them, and then if you want to get more information, or you can also connect with me, and feel free to, like ask me questions about where, what do you think about this, and I'm open as long as you also respect my privacy, my home time with my family. I'm open for that kind of conversation. Okay. So yeah, we can chat about that. Anyway, so they explain, if you click on the link, they will actually have a detailed place where they suggest where you can install, how you can install Git. Git is the first friend that you need for contributing, okay? Because you need that. I think everyone using Git now. I think Emil can correct me if I'm wrong. If there are, whatever you call it, Bitbucket, Jira, oh no, Jira is not software. Sorry, wrong. GitHub, GitLab, whatever you call it, basically it's a Git. All right. So if you can, how many of you already installed Git? Good. But you can see probably not all of us in the room, like probably less than half of us in the room. Now, initially, I would like to have this as part of the activities tonight. The way we install Git, people, and then let's jump in. Okay, let's make our first contribution with this repo. But because less than half of us here actually already installed Git, and trust me, as easy it may sound or it may look, but sometimes machines have different mind, and they say no, I need this, dependencies first. No, you can't do this. But don't worry, if you are keen, I can push this, we can pass this first. Let's move on to the next part of the presentation. If we still have time, we can actually have that practical hands-on session where you're trying to install Git, and you can actually try to make the first contribution at the end of the presentation, after Emil shared his experience, okay? And for those who actually thinking like, yeah, but I'm not going to do that now. It's a Friday night, for God's sake. You're making me work? No. I'm not going to do that. I'm just saying, like, if you're interested, you want to try first contributions, you're welcome. I'm willing to stay extra 30 minutes here to actually help you, like if you have any issues with installing Git or trying your first contribution, I'm willing to help, like stay here. I mean, honestly, after 9 o'clock, I think I'm getting old now. 9:30 is my bedtime. So I have to, I'm happy to stay until 9 with, otherwise, if you do need to get more, get more information after this, you can probably, we can collaborate again maybe next time for a workshop special for hands-on, or maybe you can actually just contact me and say, can you help me? We'll see. Okay, next. So this was my first contribution to the first contributions. So I can't really say my first contributions because it's not a real open source project. It is for the purpose of teaching people how to make contributions. This guy is so lovely. As soon as I make my contributions, he will really welcome me and say like, oh, can you please share your experience? And it's not a robot person, how when you make your contribution, sometimes there is a robot automatically say, congrats, you're making your contribution, yay! It's good as well to have that. But then this is a real person wants to talk to me, it feels like, oh, this is a good move. I can talk to someone, I can learn something, and with real people if I want to ask more. Okay, so that's why I love this website, and that's why I think I should share this with you all. Next one, please, Audrey. So, if you remember the balloon number before, and that's where I placed my contribution, the first contributions link. But if you click on it, please, Audrey. This is also another thing that this first contributions repository has, is a place where you can look at all the open source options for new beginners. So if you think like, oh yeah, there are lots of open source out there, but it's probably too complex. They're building this all crazy systems, and that I don't know that whether I'm comfortable of contributing. But they're making a list of all the general open source projects, and they actually link. If you click on one of them, they actually click straight to where they say first contributors or first good issues, they call it. Okay, so first good issues normally is very, very introductory level of issues, list of issues that they have. Not all of them will automatically have that, obviously, because not every time probably they have low-level issues. They have maybe high-level issues if they're already really established. So unlikely you will find lots of big ones that will have probably plenty of good issues, good first issues. But there are out there. And another thing that I would like us to explore before is to go there. Can we spend, let me say, 10 minutes probably? 10 minutes exploring this site. I want you to first tell me the name of the place, tell me the good issues that you can see in that, in that project, and tell me whether you think that project give good information that you can easily start with as a newcomer. Okay, that's the thing that we want to see. Okay, lots of open source here. What makes them a good place to start? Okay, let's have that and discuss that in your table. Maybe choose two, for example, two of the project as a group. If you have a laptop, everyone is alone. Maybe you can actually sit with someone. If there are 3 tables still, you can sit with other people in the room, and then you can have a discussion. Sorry, I hope you don't mind I asked you to move. Thank you, really appreciate that. All right, so your 10 minutes starts now. Remember the three things, okay? Find two projects. Okay, tell me the name of that project. Anyway, let's make a move now. The purpose for this particular workshops, if you probably noticed the name at the beginning, is?
Oh.
Who noticed the name at the beginning? No? Yes! Well done, Journey to Open Source. Oh, is it? Is it the first line? Yeah, okay, Journey to Open Source. Well done. Now, you already learned about how to get the first contribution. You already know what to look in a good project that you can actually contribute, that you can actually consider. Now, the next step. Okay, I've done my first one with. What's next? Oh, okay, someone is locked. No? Or
Maybe.
someone wanna kick us out of the building? I mean, are we?
No.
We have alumni.
Alright.
Oh,
Just
okay.
want to be sure. Because I don't want to get you locked down here in this room. Not able to enjoy your weekend. Sorry.
Oh no, we have a booking until like 10.
Oh, okay, good. Until 10, yeah? Good to know. No party, people, no party. Just keep it professional. Okay, whatever after 10 you will do. Okay, so what now? Guess? Can anyone guess? What now? I already make a first contribution. Now I already know my project that I want to make that contribution with. What do you do next? Hands up. Yes, Emil.
You fork it.
Yeah. Exactly. Now, just in case, do you know what Emil mentioned by fork it?
Yep.
Yes? Yes? Or someone's confused like, what? Forking it? Oh my goodness, you want me to that? No. Who knows what fork means? Would you like to? You already almost, and then you do this. No? Okay. Yes, please. Yes, please. First, your name.
Oh, Yoma.
Ah, nice to know you. Yes.
That forking is like the first step to creating a local clone of that repository, so you don't start, editing that one instantly.
That's very good. Seems like you're the one of the tech guy, eh? The tech girl. Sorry. Right. Yes. So forking, and then forking is to make the copy of that repository to yourself. Okay. As we say, open source is open, right? But can we change it? Can we grab go there to their repo and then just change it there? Make a change there. Like they're willing to. I mean, they prepare the source code there for us to mess up with, right? No, it's not. It's not about that. So you need to make a copy of that repo. What's next? Emil, you can't answer this. Alright. I mean, you can. I lied. Okay. Who knows what's next after you're forking that repo? I think someone else can answer that repo probably. No. Oh, but hold on. You answer what fork is, and you'll give the key. And who else in the room can say what's next? Nicholas, Matthew?
Solving the issue.
Oh, you're the action guy. You wanna just solve issue first. I already fork it. Now, issues here. Let me fix it. Not yet.
Determine the goal and ask about what's the more info, like find out more info about the issue and everything.
Yes, sort of. But so yes, when you start forking and then you already make that repo on your own, and then you start looking at what issues available, right? But the terms that I want to look for before you branch it. Okay, back to Vimana. She's being like,
No, I'm not.
it's good. I like participation. Oh, by the way, I forgot to mention at the beginning of this presentation that our lovely team over here has prepared one JB Hi-Fi rewards gift card for
It's
those.
$50.
There you go, listen. How much?
$50.
Can I have it? No, not a joke. Not joking. Okay, so for the most active participant of the night, So, and then it's not up to me, it's up to them, okay? Who decide who's gonna be the most active one. So, but yes, you can answer, please. Because no. Don't worry.
You say that now.
Yeah.
Why after the gift card?
Hey, but I already asked you to give your answer before the gift card.
You clone the form.
Clone the form. What is clone? Can someone please help? What is clone? Yes.
Making a local copy of the project.
Yes, a local copy of the project because you already fork it, make the repo your own, and you need to make it a local copy, right? Why?
Work on it.
Why don't you work on the one that you already like just straight away there on the GUI?
Because then it would be misleading others, and then the wrong thing could be on the web.
Yeah, and because as developers, or you can say developers or contributors, you know, because not all of us going to develop coding wise, right? But as contributors, you really want to make it your local copy because if something happened, you know, internet crashed down, you still have that copy to play around with. No, I'm joking. But yes, that's one of it. If you're very keen of contributing and you say, I just don't want to interact with, you know, user interface of Git, making it into repo, and then it's hard to work with, you know, putting changes if you don't have a local copy, right? So you have to, the next thing you have to do is to clone it, and they want that. The open source organization normally prefer you follow a certain flow, and it's very important. Later probably Emil can help explain why that specific flow is actually important for us all to know of. It's not just for, you know, like, just for the fun of knowing and yes, this is the rule that they want to follow, but there are more benefit to that probably we can explore more. And Emil is a good place to, you know, like a source for us to learn from him why that is the case. Okay, we can have more discussion on that later. Now, after you fork, you clone, you what? Pardon? Edit, modify. Yes, you work on issues. Can you just work on issues like, okay, I know issues, just work on it.
And you have to create a branch first.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but before you create a branch, there's a step that you have to do first.
So
Remember, you're working with community. What's you're working with community?
Search the question.
Search for the question.
Ask the question.
Ask the question. What sort of question? You want to work on an issue.
Based on the problem.
Yes. Say it out loud, please.
Assigning the question.
Yeah. Can you please assign the issue to me? I would like to work on this, please. It's a nice way to say, okay, I'm interested in that issue, but you know what? Who cares about others? No, that's not the case. You know, like you have to ask politely, hey, it's interesting issues there, and I'm a beginner. Well, regardless of you're beginner or expert, you say, can someone please assign that issue to me? I want to learn it. I wanna. Then you will. Why do we need to be assigned first before we work? What's wrong if there is no assignee, and then, you know, like people just working on it? Why? What's wrong with that?
Only one person is working on it, not multiple person working on it.
Yeah, it is a waste of everyone else's time, right? If lots of people working on it, but then only one person get the chance to put their code in, and that will make a sort of like a clash in the community. Like, why you pick him, not me? Why is this the case and things? You know, so all things, the flow is there for people to work in harmony as a community. Okay, so hi, I'm interested. I already fork and already clone, and can I try to? But before you do, and then yes, you work on it. Okay, and then you get assigned. Okay, like, all right, you ask nicely, good. I'll give this to you. If you ask, you know, sometimes 2 people or 3 people ask for those issues, like that particular issues. Then it's up to the normally the first one who claimed the issue will get the chance to do it first. Okay, but of course there are certain way, how long that you can be working on the issues. Not that you can finish it in 3 days. Forget about it. You know, don't worry. It's not the case. They will ask you, do you need help? You have to update them about that issues. Keep updating them about, yeah, I'm working on this now. Just update. Day 1 update, day 2 update, day 3 update. Where you're up to? Okay, and then at least 3 days. They allowed you not to just give them information every day, but then at least 3 days. Well, different organizations have different rules, but majority 3 days, like normally. Is that right? Or what's the case in your life? Okay, maybe. Let's say you really have to look into their rules. They have guidelines on their wiki site, or they normally call it contributing guidelines. Look for that and look carefully about that. And another thing, you made your changes after you clone, and then you make a branch, like PK said, and then you want to push, ding, ding. It says you can't push. Why?
You have to add first.
You have to add the remote branch, so you can actually go to that remote. What is a remote branch? No? No hands? Hands up? Okay, remote branch is the original repository of that project that you're forking from. So this is an original. Fork it, make your own copy of it, and clone it, make a local copy of it, work on it. Oh, sorry. Request to work on it, and then create a branch, and then push it to the remote branch where you actually say, I have my code, I'm successfully done this task. Can you please test it? Can you please review it? But for them to be able to review, you need to push that into the remote branch. So to open a pull request, right? And then they can start pulling that from their own machine, and they say, yeah, okay, let's test this, let's have a review process. Maybe they want to look at the code, maybe they want to try to run the code if what you're doing is actually something to do with the software that fixing the bug or anything. Now, all done, all good, all beautiful, good, perfect. You have the knowledge of open source, how the workflow works, but still, this is based on just one person experience. If you want to know more, go to the community, ask the community, and then you have to confirm that that's the guidelines, okay? Read the guidelines carefully. Otherwise, you probably won't be having a good fun contributing with the community, because if you're stepping on other people's foot, not passing. But again, always ask the questions. Yeah, always don't be. They're there for open source to welcome you in your learning journey, not for criticizing you for making mistakes. Don't worry if you make mistakes. Everyone make a mistake. I made mistakes. Like when I ask a question that looks like, oh, is this a silly question? No one actually put down on me and say, now let's, you probably have to, I will give you a little bit of a tough learn here, tough love, they say. Tough love, sorry if this will be a bit too much for you, but this is what I'm gonna say. But then it's beneficial for me, then I grow. Now, let's go to the next point that I'm going to talk about tonight, which is Google Summer of Code. What is Google Summer of Code? Why do we want to know about that? Anyone? Maybe from this front area? No, that's okay. Like, if I'm sure, like everyone probably, if you're happy for us to share the experience, like why you're, what you know about Google Summer of Code, you're happy too. But otherwise, are you happy to pass it to someone else to answer? Yes? Okay.
So the Google Summer of Code is an initiative by Google to promote open source contributions. It's where a lot of organizations come together and they have mentors and then students who want to contribute can actually be a part of that organization and have two mentors with them to guide them through contributing and everything.
Yeah, and the number of mentors probably different between one organization to the other. Some might have just one. It depends on maybe they have enough mentors to help with the project. Some might have like two. Like with my project at Anitabi, I have like two mentors. Oh, hold on, two technical mentors. One sort of like a documenting or technical documentation mentors. The other one is project manager. So I have four. Okay, so and good thing about that part, Google is so good, knowing that open source is a booming area, and it's good beneficial for the students to learn something while they're at uni, because this is, I think, for those who either doing a degree or either thinking of doing a degree. I'm not sure, maybe they have a new term now where students high school can actually learn this as well. So there are opportunities there, but there are rules where you have to be a certain age to start this, but there's no rule of you have to be, like the maximum age that can be allowed. That's where I come in. I made the last step of my career, not last step of my career, change of career. Okay, I was working in admin before, and then changed to a teaching jobs and to IT. So this is the first step of my career, but I'm already a bit late coming into the career, okay, to the IT area. And initially with Google Summer of Code, I thought, can I participate? I'm new and I'm probably a bit too old. I have to use that word, but I'm almost like half a decade. Is it a decade? Yeah.
Century.
Huh? Century, that's it. A decade means like what? 500 years old? No way. Alright, half a decade, 55. Okay. My math is bad, you can see. Anyway, my community encouraged me at that time, knowing I have the imposter syndrome, only participating in December 2019, I participated in 2 codes, but then when I look around, actually help answering questions, asking questions, clarifying things, so without any extra contribution, but trying to help with the digital documentation or technical documentations and things like that, and active in the community, okay? And then when they start, the organization got accepted in Google Summer of Code, and they say, all right, students or community members, anyone want to join us as a student developer? Start thinking of your ideas. Discuss with us what your ideas are, and before you can actually, you're actually applying and start putting your proposal. You get, that's a benefit of being in the community beforehand, okay? Because you can actually grab some input from that organization. Then I said, all right, but I probably won't do that. This was about February. February or March, they already start, they know that they got selected, and they mentioned to the community, whoever wants to apply, start putting down your proposal. And they help you, they guide you, you can ask questions. But I'm not feeling it at that time. I feel like I'm a newbie, this is just my first career. I haven't even finished graduating yet. Why will I, apply if they probably won't look at me? I'm so, imposter syndrome really pressed me down. And then when people start asking questions, the students start asking questions, I help answer, even though I'm not thinking of applying, right? And they said, one of the students, actually asked, are you a mentor? Seems like you know things. Are you a mentor? Do you want to, are you going to be the one that's selecting our applications? I said, no. I don't even think of being a student, so I can't even imagine being a mentor. And the admin who actually saw my response said, Maya, you're crazy, you're not applying? You should apply, you should try. But I don't know anything. Are you kidding us? You're helping our community, answering these questions, things like that are really helpful. Just do it. Don't worry about whether you're ready or not. Just take that step. Yeah, but I don't know enough programming language. We don't care about you, what you know. We want to know your behavior. Are you the type of person that willing to learn, open to like changes, saying yeah. I mean, that's why I changed my career 3 times. If they give me an offer, I take that offer, and I'm willing to take it. And yeah, so that's where I stand. Now the next one, please click on that. Click on that. If you just want to know where to find Google program and what they have, what sort of rule they have, please go to this website. You're going to get a copy of the presentation slide. You can click on your own, and then please browse on your own. But trust me, you'll find that journey really useful. Yeah? The difference between the Google Summer of Code and just open source is because you will be paired with a mentor that will be there for you to support you one-on-one and very focused on the project that you're that going to be there for you with your journey. Not holding hand, but help guiding you to find or to shape your ideas. Right, that's what you need. Next one. All right. So here's my tips for you all. Start with something that interests you. Always start with something that interests you. That's very important. Don't try to start with, oh, this company has a big name. Oh, good. Okay, that kind of interest is okay as well. But think again whether there is something there that can get you motivated. What's their mission? What's their, or what do you want to learn, for example? If you're interested with the mission of that project, go for it. If you're interested with the language that they have because you want to learn more about that programming language, go for it. Okay? But start with you, not starting with them. Don't just start with the big names, but you don't know the rest. You know, don't care about the rest. Don't do that. Because it will be a hard, long journey if you do even get accepted. It'll be a hard journey for you because it's not your what you're passionate on. Second, engage first with the community. Okay? Because it's a hard journey if you are only going in because you want to get selected for Google Summer of Code. You don't know the community yet. You don't know who can help you in that community that you can actually ping to say, hey, I need help with this, I need some ideas with that. Can I ask your help? You know, like, if you already know the flow, who to go to, how to contact them, it's easier to transition. Okay? Ways to contribute. There are plenty of ways to contribute. You don't just work on issues. Now this is where the non-technical people are also important for software development. You can actually help find bugs. How? I don't know what bugs is. What is a fly find that? Done. No. That's the initial concept of bugs, yes. But it's not because of that. It's, you know the application. You have phones. You have whatever front end that interface that they have for their users. If you try play up with that and you say, this is not right, you know, the flow doesn't feel right, and this link, when I click on it, doesn't work, go for it. Open an issue. Improve their documentation. If you look before in their repository and something not clear for you, open a ticket, say, I want to contribute, and I can see that in your repository you have some area that is vague. Can I open an issue for this? Go for it. Okay? Improve the UI. I start here with non-technical people first, okay? Because hello? Oh yeah, we can hang out later. Okay. Don't worry, it happens to me too. Okay, improve the UI. Try again, make a healthy critic. Don't just say, look, I wanna improve your UI. You have to listen to me. You know, do it nicely. Don't say like your UI is crap. Don't do that. They will say goodbye. Just don't come to us. Okay. And then reviews, tests, and of working with issues. Those are part of the technical people that can help with, where probably more detailed workshop is needed if you do want something, to get, okay, what is the test? What is the review? What is the issues? Okay? Check on that imposter syndrome. That's the last tips from myself, based on my experience, that I have to say to you. No need to keep, but I'm new, but I haven't finished my degree yet. But, stop that but, and then just do it. Okay? Just do it, because they're open source for that. You can take advantage of that opportunity to learn from them. They can actually take the advantage of your input to improve their software, okay, or whatever they're doing. They're doing AI, machine learning, or anything. Okay, because everyone has their own ideas. If they can collect that ideas, great, right? All right, I think we're almost at the end of my part of presentation. What's next?
Why do open source?
Yay! Why do open source? So why do we do open source again? What's the benefit for that? You can read it. I jumped too quick, sorry. But yeah, first, hands-on experience on real-life project. Yeah, VS Code is real. It's IDE. Like people use it. Companies use it. Okay, and then wow, they open source? Yeah. If you put your name there and say, in the interview you say, I work with VS Code. I work with, Linux. I work with Red Hat. I work with something that you can talk about in your interview. All right? I got multiple rejection before I started open source. Multiple rejection. And I was in second last year of uni. They say, do you have 3 years experience? No. Do you have 3 years experience? No. What experience do you have? No. I haven't actually started. And they say, have you made Git contribution? What Git? Uni didn't teach you this, right? You have to actually start there yourself. And I think probably now, since I started open source, 500 contribution almost in a year, and the next year. And then after that, I stopped because I got a job, and I have to ask permission from my job to contributing again. Before I got that, probably I have to wait. Okay, but it's not that I can't contribute anymore. I would like to contribute anymore, as long as they give me permission to do that. And some jobs are like that. So that's okay. Yeah, I don't want to dip into details on what my time, But yeah, the benefit, as soon as you get that hands-on experience on open source, in the interview you can just talk about open source and more interested on their side. Skill up. You work in team, in the community, right? You have to learn with other people. You don't work on your own. Skill up. And you also learn the programming language that you probably don't get into deep at uni. Like, maybe uni did give you some level of high advanced and things like that. But what they want to see, people from the one that want to hire you, that you're willing to learn about all these other skills. Get your foot in the door of jobs, that's a career. Because if you start there before you even finish or graduated, I hope, not too late, even already graduated, and not too late, okay? You can start anytime. But at least you have something to talk about rather than just your degree with your potential employer, your industry's best practice. You say open source, they make their source code free, available. That means they're cheap product, right? You see, Linux, VS Code, Red Hat, all these things you think they're cheap? No way. They're high quality product. And where else can you learn of this high quality software if you don't join in their open source? Can you go into their office and say, I want to see your source code? No way. Anyway, that's, I think, the end of my presentation tonight. If we go next, we can see Emil's story. Thank you so much for listening.
I'll try saying thanks.
I really like computers. When I was a kid, my dad did computer graphics as a job, and that's how I got into computers. I've always been interested in them, like for as long as I can remember. When I was a kid, my dad showed me how to program stuff in BASIC, and so I really wanted to become a programmer. When I was in school, I had this old computer. I had a, actually, sorry, that's not, that's really it. -2, okay. Thanks. I had this old computer. I had a Pascal compiler, that was the language I used. We had a dial-up modem, and I found on this BBS these like text tutorials that explained how to do like this cool spinning 3D graphics thing. And so I learned how to program this sort of thing from the tutorial, but also from that including a bunch of Pascal code in it. So how I got started with open source, this was in the DOS days. My first exposure to Linux was in about '95 because ironically I wanted to run this closed source graphics thing because it would let you program shaders, which is like you can write programs that control the appearance of the 3D objects. This was sort of a precursor to GLSL, if anyone's like played with that. Now you can do it in the browser. Linux was kind of a gateway into open source software. I used open source software before I contributed to it, right? Maybe it was because of the distro that I picked, or just because it was a long time ago. But to me, it seemed very normal at the time to like download source code for a package and then build it locally, rather than to use like a pre-built package. I wasn't yet at the stage where I was really looking at the code or editing it, but I was starting to learn how to fix build problems because the instructions didn't always quite match up. And of course, like configuring all this stuff, because it was all configured with text files, like none of the stuff had a GUI. I also started getting into more stuff that wasn't graphics, which became relevant later. I got interested in like web servers and databases, you know, all this networky stuff. One of the things that's nice about Linux, and I think open source in general, is that if you can't do something, you don't need more money to buy some software that will let you do it. You need more knowledge. So you need to read more. As a kid with no money and a lot of time, this was a pretty good trade-off. So I got to play with like really a wide variety of computer things because I could just download them for free off the internet and then set them up. So as I got older, dial-up started being replaced with always-on internet connections, like cable modems, that sort of thing. At the time, you couldn't just go to a shop and buy like a router that would share the internet, you know, across your house, because like that didn't exist yet. There wasn't the consumer demand for it. So what I would do is, with a few of my friends, I would help them set up like an old PC with 2 network cards that would then do the internet connection sharing. We would find an old PC, install Linux on it. I learned a whole lot about networking and firewalls and stuff, because that was the only way to do it at the time. You like configure IP chains, and then when you get it wrong, you learn how to use TCP dump to like debug it. You learn about, you know, what is DNS and why am I not getting this assignment and that and the other. Also around that time, so the cable ISPs had these really restrictive download limits. So that kind of motivated me to write what would become my first sort of serious piece of software, which was this thing that would watch the network interface and just collect statistics about how much I was downloading, so I knew when to stop. I mean, you know, I'd been writing programs and code for a long time, and I had a website where I would just like kind of throw things up just to kind of show people. But this was the first sort of serious package that I released as open source. I was pretty young, and I was just kind of copying what I'd seen other packages do, just learning by emulating. So I was like playing, I was pretending like this was like a real project. So I copied like, you know, how to lay out the code, figured out how to make a configure script, because that's how all the builds worked at the time. Figured out like how to write a makefile, you know, how to write a build system for it, that sort of thing. One thing that I hadn't seen and that I wouldn't see for a really long time was how to have any tests. So that was not a thing back then. But I did my best to like kind of copy what I'd seen other serious packages do. And I built this thing and I put it online and people use it. And I thought that was pretty great. Running this project also taught me a lot of things organically, like version control and why you should use it. How to do release engineering, why that's important. I still maintain this software to this day. I've gotten, you know, over the years, a lot of nice emails from people saying like, you know, thanks, they found it useful. Sometimes I get patches. Sometimes the patches are not great. Sometimes I wish that people had maybe talked to me first. Like someone wanted to kind of flipped the meanings of upload and download because they didn't understand how to read the page and they didn't read the documentation that explains how to read the page. On the other hand, I've also had some really awesome weird things that like I didn't know it existed. There was one person who was a OpenBSD user, so they're very security conscious, and he sent me all these patches to like lock down the software and improve the security stance, like added root and all this stuff that I just didn't know at the time. So I thought that was pretty cool. Sorry. So how did I find my first project? I'm not even really sure where to draw that line. I probably used some open source before I even got into Linux. I definitely got use out of open source before I wrote or like modified any. And before, like I said, before I wrote my real serious project, I was just releasing little bits and pieces, just putting stuff on my website because that was kind of my hobby. I think more generally the way that I choose projects to work on is I find something that's interesting, like we were saying earlier in the presentation, or something that's bugging me. So I needed this tool that makes animated GIFs. I actually ported it to Windows because at the time that's where I was doing my work. I was using this file manager that would occasionally crash, and that bugged me. So I decided to actually track it down. I thought it was going to be this like complicated thread race because it used threads, but once I started actually getting to the debugging, it ended up being like relatively simple. And I found an issue that someone else had opened, previously saying, sometimes it crashes when I move files. And so I posted kind of my analysis of like it crashes because of these reasons. And here's my patch, like this fixes it. But I didn't really understand the framework, so someone else came up with like a simpler patch, and then that's what got committed. But my file manager no longer crashes, so I got that fixed for me because it was bugging me. So I do stuff like that. At my current job, I work across time zones. I have a little status bar thing on my laptop that only supports one clock. So I added a feature where you could have multiple clocks. I was struggling with this plotting library until I realized that just the documentation was wrong. So I figured I should send a simple patch just so that the next person doesn't run into the same problem. Thank you. Sorry. Yeah, so I was asked to talk about how open source helped with my career, which it did in a few different ways. My first grown-up job was actually here. I was a sysadmin for RMIT Computer Science, and my experience with open source helped in a few different ways. I don't know about today, but at the time we ran Solaris, and so having had experience with Linux and the command line, and all the sort of the base tools that you would expect in a Unix, that was just a huge help with being productive in that environment. I was put in charge of keeping the installed software up to date, like all the third-party software, which was mostly open source stuff. So all of that experience with like compiling stuff from source and occasionally having to like debug a build problem, that was a huge help in my day job there. Apparently the other sysadmins didn't enjoy this work for some reason, so I got to do all of it. It was great. Solaris is interesting because it's like sort of just different enough from Linux, like some things don't quite line up. Also, even back then, a lot of software was written assuming that you were running it on Intel, and we were running Spark. So you get these, again, really interesting issues like strong alignment and like big and little endian and stuff like that. And I learned a lot about writing portable software as a result of this. All the time that I'd spent, like I said, sort of playing around with like web servers and mail servers and databases and stuff, that was now paying off because now I was in charge of running basically the same software or very similar software, except now it had real users and it was like running at scale. It wasn't just me like having my database at home. Having had experience like knowing how to configure that stuff was a big help because I already knew how to configure Apache. I just had to like learn a couple of little extra bits that we knew in this environment. And the stuff that I didn't know, I had learned how to find out, which is also a skill, and it's a really important one for a sysadmin. My next job was still sysadmin, but I was at an ISP, so there were like even more servers, even like way more network stuff. I think we used like 3 different firewall languages. And at this stage, I was starting to actually modify the software. So we had local modifications, either for features or in one case, we had this particular proxy server. It had some performance issues, and it was open source. So I downloaded it, I looked at the code, I figured out how to get some great optimizations out of it, and then we just maintained those patches locally going forward. Unfortunately, my boss was not a big fan of open source, so he didn't want to upstream it. But we did actually save money on hardware because of how much faster we got it to run. Most of our servers ran FreeBSD, which I'm a big fan of. So I would like hang out on the mailing lists. I'd report bugs. I would test patches for new things. I even contributed some minor ones of my own. Go next one, please. Another way it helped is another way open source helped my career is when I applied for my current job, I said on my resume that I contributed to OpenBSD. And it turned out one of my interviewers was like a big OpenBSD user. And so he actually looked it up and he's like, yeah, that's legit. And he told me that story later after I got hired. The other thing is, these days I do a lot of interviewing. And so when I see a resume that has a link to either a personal homepage or a GitHub account, that's a positive signal to me. And I will almost always take the time to look it up and to go look at that candidate's code and get a sense of like what sort of things they're interested in, what sort of experience they have. And finally, a lot of my day job consists of being dropped into a code base that I don't know and trying to either like add a feature or debug a problem that I caught a ticket for or to optimize something. So even though in my case, most of this code belongs to a single company, it's really quite comparable to dealing with open source, where you've never seen this thing before. You download the tarball or you clone or whatever, and then you need to be able to get in there and navigate it and make your changes in a style that fits the existing style of the project. These things are basically the same skill, and participating in open source is a great way to build that skill. Next one. So to wrap up, like why do open source? I think it's fun. Also, we are a species of tool makers. Sometimes I write a piece of software because I need it. I needed some library to load images, so I wrote one. I put it on my website so other people could, use it. And then years later, I was reading this book about ray tracers, and the authors actually like used my library. I think what happened was they looked at like production libraries, and they were like, "This is super complicated," whereas my library was like really simple and had no dependencies and no features. And I think they were just like, "Yeah, we'll just like pull that into the book because it's like way fewer lines of code." So, fun times. Sometimes I build tools, but sometimes I kind of write software recreationally. Like, I wrote my own web server partly because I wanted like a very specific kind of simple web server that you don't have to configure it because I was getting really sick of Apache.com. And I wrote it partly as an exercise in like writing a network program in a very specific like non-blocking style. I don't think there's like a commercial opportunity for a toy web server, so I just kind of put it on my website with a very permissive license. And actually a bunch of people used it and they liked it and they sent me emails and sometimes even patches, and so other people got use out of this, and for me it was just like, here's a fun hobby project that I felt like doing. There are things in our industry that need interoperability, like if you have a file format or a compression format or a network protocol, those things benefit from having open source implementations. I think for the longest time, most TCP/IP stacks and most OSs were actually pretty directly based on the BSD code from like ages ago. I think that having a reference implementation sort of in the commons can be more valuable than keeping it proprietary, right? Like, if you invent, HTTP 4.0 or something, and your company is the only one that talks it, and none of the browsers talk it, it's going to be really self-limiting. Also, software decays over time. There's proprietary software that I used a long time ago, or on like old computers and old platforms that don't exist anymore. That's lost, that I can't run anymore. But software where the code is public can be updated to run on new systems. And if you have someone who cares enough to maintain it, or for whatever reason is motivated, then people can and have done that. And there's kind of an irony here that a lot of the proprietary software that I'm still able to run is actually because of open source stuff like DOSBox and Wine and QEMU, where you can emulate the old systems. And finally, like, open source is a resource that's available for everyone. There's almost no cost to making copies of code. Like, we can distribute code basically for free. So if you contribute this to the commons, then it means that everyone in the world will have a better toolbox to work with. That's all I got.
Well, thank you to our lovely speakers for tonight. So if any of you have any questions, ask them now, or or ask them now.
Yes. All right, so.
We haven't got chairs, it looks like it's.
Thank you. Okay, so.
Does anyone have any questions?
Don't be shy, we don't fight.
But a Jurassic Park reference.
Thank you. Someone caught it. That makes it worthwhile. Thank you.
That's good.
I recently palmed off an old SGI to a friend of mine here in Melbourne because he really wanted to run that 3D file manager.
Yeah, I can't believe it was real.
Yep. Yeah, and he got it running. He got like a little screen recording. It made me very happy.
Ah, that's awesome.
That's good. Alright. Anyone else? You can ask anything, don't worry.
How was your progression like in the world of open source? Like, yeah, we could start by doing simple non-code stuff or documentation stuff, but how did you actually progress into, or like, ease into the world of open source with complex programs and complex algorithms and stuff?
Alright, okay,
You start first?
no one can stop you from doing open source unless you're like breaking the law or being abusive. So like, please don't do it. Yeah, but well, for me, it was I liked writing stuff, and so I would just kind of release it, and then I started like getting contributions back, and then I feel that for me the escalation was to actually go into someone else's code base and be able to fix problems. I think that's harder, but that's also like a really good skill to have, and in particular, like I explained, that's basically my day job now. So, yeah, I'd recommend like learning how to do that.
Yeah.
Maya,
And
what about you?
for myself, because again, I started as a student, remember that. And I actually don't know much about the language that I use in that open source project. So I have to ask a lot of questions. If you don't know, you ask, or you Google. Google is your best friend. You have internet. Okay. I thought we almost, time. Sorry. So don't you start small, and then as you know a bit more of the project, you actually ready to actually like willing to push yourself a bit harder, a bit deeper, with a bit more complex code, and because you could see, because I could see that the response from the community are always positive. They never look down on me and things like I'm silly asking those questions that are, like everyone should be expert on, like, no, they never have that type of attitude. So just ask. Okay, I'll take a little bit. So I'm starting from here, and then, I can probably push myself. I want a bit more complex issues. Do it again. And then, I'm stuck. I don't know what to do. Can I ask someone? Just yell out. Yeah, okay, what do you want to learn? And have a session. That's the beauty of it. And I actually have to say, if you pay uni, and you can't really harass your lecturer or your tutor all the time, can you? But of course, you're not harassing the community, but you're just asking, right? And good thing if you have a big base of community with lots of different skills, like Anita B has like probably about 3,000 that time, like, so anyone like in the community can see your questions, and if they have time, they're willing to, and that's how you learn, and you push yourself a bit more, and towards the end, because I successfully actually completed my GSOC thanks to the help of my mentors and the community around me, I wanted to participate more. I volunteered to become the project maintainer, and which I did for 2 years after GSOC. And then it's very worthwhile and experience working together with the team, and then we have all this session, even though different time zone, learn how to collaborate with people from all around the world. And that's what my employer actually look into when they hire me, or not just my employer, everyone that gave me a chance for interview, give me to the next stage of the interview because of the way I say my experience in the open source, right? Like, I learned that, and it's no way I will have that experience if I don't start open source. Like, what did you do with learning this experience? I learned that at my unit by assignment, full stop. Like I can't explore anything further. I can, but then it's hard to convince them that, but what's your contribution to a community? What makes us trust you? You can work in a team. That hopefully answer your question.
So building on the previous thing, Emil also mentioned a part where you're regularly being dropped into code bases that you're not aware of. So it's like the gist of open source. You just get dropped into projects and code bases you're not aware of. How do you actually navigate around these places?
It's a skill, and it's one that I didn't used to have. But it basically comes down to reading code and being able to jump. Kind of like jump to definition in an IDE. But the thing is, you get used to this thing where you can kind of trace your way through execution just by like reading through all this code and knowing how it's laid out. Like knowing, it's a C++ project, so I have to look at the header file to figure out the API, and then I have to look at the other file to look at the implementation and stuff like that. Yeah, it's something I certainly got better at over time at my job. Yeah.
And following what Emil said, as a language teacher, not programming language teacher, I learned to see like, oh, people learn language this way, and then when I look into the IT and I said, hold on, all these language skills, they're just language that actually doing almost the same thing. There are certain components of it that work together, give it the same concept, right? But it's just the way they write it differently. But like Emil said, you have to look, you learn to know where to trace things down because you're familiar with the other language that also probably, have the same sort of like purpose. So that's how you learn programming language. I mean, for me, that's how I learned it. Like, I didn't learn Python at uni, and then when I did my open source, they said that we only have mentors for Python and React.js. Are you happy to learn that? Yeah, okay. Yeah, I never started that at uni, but yeah, okay, I learned it. Because really, language, I teach language. Like, language is just language. The way I understand people in a different country and things language, as long as you know, like the concept where the context where these things is used, you learn it.
I think once you get programming, you can learn different languages and syntaxes more easily.
Exactly. I agree, totally agree. See, so don't worry, you can. Trust yourself, you can learn it. Open mindset. All right, yes?
How do you recommend approaching open source? Like just as a learning tool or as an alternative to proprietary software?
What do you mean with alternative proprietary?
How do you approach open source? Just
Yeah.
as a learning tool or as an alternative to proprietary? Because like most of the open source software are there because they don't want proprietary code. Whereas open source allows you to audit the code and change it. How would you recommend approaching it?
Answer. That's a good question.
I like to pick the right tool for the job. And it kind of depends. I needed to edit some videos, and so I'm like, okay, I can buy a video editing package, or I can use KDE and Live. And I crashed a couple of times, and maybe that's a trade-off.
Yeah, I never learned. Never afraid to learn, or never afraid to fail as well, right? When we fail, we learn something new. Always like that. For me, I learn because when I start with my interest. I chose Anita B because they have the mission that I'm interested in, empowering women in IT. Like, I'm interested in that, definitely. Because I myself finding me as a middle-aged woman coming into IT, a new career, like I need support, And then they offer the mentoring program for that, but they need someone to help as well, community to help with building that software to make it possible. Put my hands up. But then they say, yeah. So that's my approach. First, interest, and then open mindset for learning. You fail, that's okay. Learn again, improve. Fail again, improve. Don't worry about failures. You're still learning. That means you're still learning. And you get a chance to learn. That's good. Next.
The next question is the last question, so.
Yes.
As both a learning method and as building resume, would you recommend doing more open source projects over personal projects?
Okay.
If your personal project is open source, then
Yes.
when I look at a resume, I'm interested to see the code. I don't particularly mind like what the project is. One thing I will say though is I prefer if you're building a project. If you're doing project-driven work, as in like if you're building a tool that solves a problem for you, rather than like here is my programming 101 class where I implemented a linked list to satisfy the assignment.
Yeah. So it's a purposeful like software, or you're doing things on purpose, along with the code that that you're producing. Because everything you probably will see, like everything is for a purpose. Like why are you creating this? Why are you spending your time to this? Okay, you can elaborate why. They buy you or your reasons. That's a good resume. That's okay. That's our time, is it?
I guess we can take one. Okay, so one last question.
Yes.
Your favorite programming language and why?
That's a hard one.
I don't want to start a fight, but I do a lot of C++ at work, and I like it, despite its warts. And the reason I like it is you can go from like this like very high level through like templates of templates, and you go asm volatile like lock mov some assembly thing. You can do that in a space of 5 lines. That's why I like it.
Me? I'm a hybrid person. I don't have any favorite.
Alright, so which one
That's
for
a
now?
diplomatic answer.
For now,
Yeah.
Python. Sorry, the Java people or the Ruby people or whatever. For me, it's Python, just because I just from my experience, when I learned it, I actually because I learned it on the spot during GSA, I learned it, and it feels like, ooh, this is something that is good for everyone to start learning with, because it seems like very friendly, like for beginners, right? But don't blame me. If you go into Python, you just say like, Maya said this didn't work out for me. Please don't blame me. I just feel like.
Thank you. Give her another round of applause. And before we end with like closing, everybody please come up here and we can take a picture with our lovely speakers.
Also, after we take photo, we will announce the
The winner.
JB Hi-Fi winner.